Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for attending our 2023 grant info session. Today, we'll be talking about various grant opportunities available through the foundation. You'll get a chance to meet some of the foundation staff, as well as doing some contract review. We also want to go through the website. We have some changes out there, and then we'll open it up for questions, but please feel free to utilize the chat feature. As you do have questions, we'll try to answer those questions as we go through. I know sometimes it's hard to try to keep questions to the end because you might forget. Happens to me all the time. I have to write it down or something. So please feel free to utilize the Q&A, and we'll be sure to respond to those questions. And I will try to do it in real time so that we are able to keep up and it's relevant to the information that we are talking about. So I will get ready to share my screen to provide you with an opportunity to go along with our presentation. So I believe that screen is now being shared. And let's go ahead and get into some materials. So as I said, the overview of the grant opportunities, we are going to talk about our Thrive grants, talk about racial equity funds, as well as memorial health, embracing aging. We'll even talk about Trove Street. I know a lot of you have heard about that. Kathy has been leading the charge for embracing aging. So I wanted to create an opportunity for Kathy to talk a bit about embracing aging as well. So before we get into all the good stuff, let's talk to our team members. This is the grants department, or the community engagement and grants department. These are the folks that help to make everything happen in the forefront and the background. They truly do an amazing job. What I'm going to do is allow our two newest staff members, being Jason Andrews and Shauna Griffith, to just come on and have a couple of words as we get ready to kick things off, and then we'll get into the material. So Jason, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then once you wrap it up, Shauna can go ahead and introduce herself as well.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Hi, everyone. My name's Jason Andrews. As Adrian mentioned, I'm the new grants program manager at the York County Community Foundation, and I'm really looking forward to working with you all as we move through the year in the grant cycles.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shauna Griffith. I am the Grants Administrative Assistant here at YCCF. I joined YCCF by way of York City School District, where I've served as both a secretary and office manager for the Edgar Foster STEAM Academy for 5 years, but altogether 7 years. I was also the softball coach at William Penn Senior High School. I'm very much interested, and I continue to work in the community of York City and the surrounding areas. So I look forward to just bringing that passion as well as my community awareness to the foundation. Thank you, Adrian.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And again, welcome to the team. We are elated and ecstatic to have you. So thank you so much. And you'll hear more from both Kathy as well as Layla as we go through the webinar. So let's first talk about grantee eligibility. So you must be classified as a 501c3 public charity under the Internal Revenue Code. This does not apply to government agencies or public school districts. As individuals, they're not qualified as applicants. An organization coming must have been a 501c3 for a minimum of 1 year, must provide services directly to your county, must have submitted a satisfactory post-grant report for all previous grants from YCCF before applying for a subsequent grant. So in other words, you want to make sure you're in good standing and you've checked all your boxes and made sure all those post-grant reports have been completed. And you can only have one active grant per funding source. So what that means is if you have applied for a large grant through Thrive, while that grant is still open, you can't go ahead and apply for another large grant through Thrive. Now you can apply to Memorial Health Fund or Racial Equity Fund if you have programs that align with that, but you wouldn't be able to utilize those dollars all in the same fund. Part of that is because we do want to be as inclusive as possible and allow as many different opportunities for other organizations to be funded as well. So in other words, we want to try to spread the wealth all throughout the community and ensure that the dollars are all not tied up by one or two grantees because of the number of grants they're submitting. Grants are not provided for endowments, budget shortfalls, debt retirement or association dues, various secretary religious programs, organizations with discriminatory employment or program practices, any form of direct financial assistance to individuals, and reimbursement for programs or items purchased prior to the grant. That becomes problematic. So we'll talk about the importance of making sure your program or project start date, is after the grant has been approved, because we don't want you to have an issue in which you're not able to utilize the funds. And if you have an open grant from YCCF, you must contact Jason or I before applying, and we'll get into some of that as we continue in the webinar. Documents you'll want to start gathering. You want those audited financial statements or your current balance sheet, an organizational budget with income and expenditures, a list of your board of directors with any affiliations, your 501c letter. If a fiscal sponsor is needed, you want to contact YCCF for more information about that. We can discuss that process and what needs to happen and information that's needed. And then you want to really start asking your questions. Does your grant request fit the funding stream selected? And we'll talk about the different funding streams. We want to make sure that it fits. And have someone else read your applications. Is your story, is it clear? Is it compelling? Is it consistent? So have someone who maybe doesn't do the work all the time, who can look at it from a very objective standpoint, and then make sure that it fits that funding stream, that we can move forward with that. We look at those interim and post-grant reports. We do the check-ins and the reports. One way for us to improve our dialogue, between the funding source, and the organization. We're making sure that the answers are short. We have one reflection field for those shorter loans or those smaller amounts. Maybe a 6-month check-in, depending on your program. YCCF staff may request an in-person or virtual meeting just to do a check-in. Please don't think because we're reaching out to have a check-in that something was wrong. If we review your interim report, we see that your spending is going well. We might just want to say, hey, what are you doing? What are some of those best practices so we can help other organizations? Or if we see that spending isn't going so well, we can also talk about that. Hey, is it that the spending happens towards the end of the grant, so that's why there's still so much money left? Or could you just be having some issues and you need some help? It's okay to come to the funder and say, hey, we need some help. We might need some more time. Is it possible to do a budget request change? Because now, after doing the work, we see that we need something different versus what we thought we were going to need initially. All of those things are okay conversations. Everything will be sent through Founded, so you don't have to worry about us sending you something outside of the system. Comes right to the system, which makes it very easy to track and see what's happening. Post-grant reports will look similar, but longer. We'll compare projected versus actual data. One reflection field and staff follow-up, so we can learn with you. So this process is truly a learning process for us. We are not the know-all of everything. We know how to get money out, and we try to do it in a very effective and efficient way. But when it comes to program delivery and the things that are happening from that regard, we really depend on you as our partners to help educate us, so we understand where we need to potentially move dollars to, or what area should we be focusing on. So a lot of that information flows from you as the grantee to us. So we definitely need that. So here is where we like to talk about, the funds that YCCF has. it's nice for us to say when we started off the year, excuse me, we had, $211 million in assets. And people say, wow, all that money, why isn't more money going out to the community? Well, even though we have a ton of money, it's not necessarily our money to dictate where it goes. As you can see, the bulk majority of the money, there is no flexibility. These are those donor designated funds or agency endowment funds in which either the donor just tells us, cut a check and it's going here, or we have agency endowment funds, that's started by a nonprofit, and then that nonprofit is able to grant dollars to itself every year. So we don't have any control over that. Then we have those donor advised funds. You have your donors that identify charities to support. Of course, there is no grant application. The donor has put an endowment with us and they let us know where dollars are going. We also have, a scholarship fund that's for education only. Students apply to the scholarship organizations at their school districts, or if it's something done through our website in certain cases. But again, those are, areas where the flexibility from the staff do not exist. So then we start getting to the more flexible dollars, when it really comes like those field of interest, and the most flexible dollars, would be the dollars that are flowing from our fund for York County. And there's some other funds that make up those dollars. So, really when we're talking about it, 7% of those, of all those dollars is really where we have that discretion. We look at our field of interest. Again, the donor decides the focus areas, and they work with us, and they have conversations and say, hey, since you as YCCF staff, you're out in the community, people are talking to you, this is an area where I have a focus. I want dollars to go here. Can you help me find organizations that do that kind of work, or they're involved in that particular area? And we'll go ahead and make the presentation, but ultimately, it falls on that donor to say, how those dollars will be expended if they wanted to go to that organization. So again, a bit more flexible, but we don't have that total control. So as much as we love to say we have all these millions of dollars, a lot of those dollars are not dictated by YCCF. So I wanted to make sure everyone understands how that process works. So yet again, our community grant reader program is back. We are excited to have the community decide where dollars are going. The community grant readers are great. They help to score those applications for funding that is $6,000 or less. They do it for our Thrive grants as well as for Embracing Aging. It is necessary to have this kind of program because it provides that buy-in from the community. More importantly, it helps the community to really be involved. So that's that shared power that YCCF has put in its DEI North Star to say, we want to share that power. And here with the community grant readers, they're the ones that review and score the grants. To date, we have 30 people that have signed up to read grants, and we're still pushing for more. So if folks are getting emails or saying, hey, do you know anything about that? Encourage them to please be a part of that community grant reader. The way it works, scores will be combined with the highest scoring grants being funded. We do mandatory training for the readers. Staff will review grant applications only to ensure they are fundable. So, when Jason and I are reviewing them, when Kathy's reviewing them for that EA perspective, it's just making sure that whatever you're asking for aligns with that fund. It's not to make the determination of if it should be funded. That happens more so with the community grant readers, but we have to make sure if it's Thrive, it's, doing what it needs to do when it comes to creating economic mobility. When it's Embracing Aging, it's for those who are 50 and older, so it has to align with that. Grants not selected could potentially be funded by other YCCF communities. Because we have various other funding sources, there still are opportunities to potentially be funded. And when we see those opportunities, we are quick to ensure that we let a potential grantee know that it wasn't funded here, but let's have a conversation about another funding source. So we'll talk about our Thrive grants, which again, we kicked it off in 2022. So now we're going into the second year of our Thrive grants. We're excited of the work we were able to do in year one, and now we're looking forward to continue to impact the community. So Thrive grants will focus on programs and collaboratives that transform lives in our community by helping low-income individuals build economic mobility. We're trying to get folks to a place of being self-sufficient, where they are not in need of subsidies and governmental dollars and assistance. And if we can't eliminate it, at least being able to decrease the dependency on such. Grants are awarded to organizations or collaboratives that support our new strategic direction in creating new programs, expansion or continuation of existing programs, planning and research. Grants up to $6,000 will be reviewed. They will be scored and selected based upon the average score given by the community grant readers. Grant applications are significantly shorter. We were purposeful in doing so because we did not want folks putting all this energy into a grant that's $6,000. And I am in no way, shape, or form saying it's not a lot of money. But on the flip side, when you have a $900,000 budget and you have to spend 5 hours for a $6,000 scholarship, it just doesn't make sense. So we wanted to make that process as streamlined and as simplistic as possible. There's a quicker turnaround with only 10 to 12 weeks from cycle opening until grants are awarded. And we've simplified the interim report requirement as well. So the interim report is just a few questions that have to be answered, and then we can keep things moving. Again, we wanted to enact those interim reports just to ensure that organizations are spending the dollars. We don't want to wait until close to the end of the year or end of that grant program to get a call to say, hey, we're having trouble spending the dollars. Let's have those conversations early. And if we are, we could potentially identify another use for the money. So still looking at those Thrive grants up to $6,000, and the focus is exactly the same, whether it's the Thrive grants up to $6,000 or the larger Thrive grants, which are over $6,000. The focus remains the same, to help low-income individuals build that economic mobility. So we have 5 pillars or 5 areas of which we're really focusing our dollars: housing, transportation, childcare, career development, and financial education. So when we talk and have those conversations about your grant idea, the first thing I want to ask is, so which area are you focusing in on? We're going to be awarded up to $70,000 in 2023. So the way we do it with our grant readers, we split them up. For the first cycle, there's $35,000 available. For the second cycle, there's $35,000 available. And that's how we get to our $70,000. Do we have any questions thus far as we're going through? Anything come through the Q&A?
Yes, Jason is currently working on this one question, but if you want to touch on it.
Sure.
So Gwen's question is, if we have a large grant request, let's say over $100,000, and our program fits under several YCCF grant programs, is it allowable to divide our grant request over several grant programs? For example, 50,000 grant requests to Embracing Aging and 50,000 under Memorial Health.
Great question. Thank you for that, Gwen. Thank you, Shauna. You cannot. You would have to submit different applications simply because those are different funding sources that you're pulling from. There's different aspects of information being collected. So from the Thrive perspective, there's a very different, it's a different look as far as what those outcomes need to be or the kind of work you're doing versus with Embracing Aging. So those would be 2 separate conversations and 2 separate grant applications that you would have to complete. Kathy, anything you'd like to add to that, or are you okay with that? Okay, Kathy says she's good. Okay, excellent. So we have our Thrive grants up to $6,000. If you want to be in that first cycle, the grant cycle will open on February the 1st. Applications will be due March 1st, and awards announced April 10th to grantees with press release to follow. Now, when you get into the application, you will see it probably in a couple of slides. You want to make sure that your program start date is April 1st or later, because you cannot start getting dollars or using dollars if the grant has not been approved yet by our board of directors or by myself, because I do approve grants as well. So you want to make sure that your program start date is after April 1st if you are doing the Thrive grants up to $6,000 under cycle 1. If you're doing it under cycle 2, which opens July 1st and closes August 1st, your program start date must be September 1st or later. It is very important that you put in the proper program start date. So we look at our Thrive grants over $6,000, and these grants will be reviewed, scored, and selected by YCCF's distribution committee. That's made up of individuals within the community. They have strong ties to the community, have been here. Many of them are business leaders who are part of this process. Prior to submitting an application for Thrive grants over $6,000, you must contact myself and Jason to have a conversation. So if you try to apply, you won't be able to, because you have to have the code to apply. We're doing this for multiple reasons. One, we love to talk to you and we love to hear all of your great ideas. So, we want you to come through, have those conversations with us too. We want to make sure that it fits. We want to make sure that the funding source is correct. We want to make sure that what you're promoting or what you're asking us to fund matches what our priorities are. More importantly, we're actually a resource to you. We can help you to write a better, a stronger application. We can give you key pointers and things of that nature, give you different approaches. It is our goal, our desire, actually it's our jobs to get you funded. We are not trying to find ways to not fund you. We're trying to find ways to ensure that we're getting you dollars so you can get the dollars into the community. So please make sure we have those conversations. And if you try to apply, I'm sorry, but it won't let you. I do have someone who has their hand raised. So let's see if Mark, if you want to put your question in the chat or the Q&A, and then we can go ahead and respond to that.
I do have a question here from Rebecca.
Thank you.
She wanted to know in regards to Thrive grants for education that can help to reduce poverty. When I did ask her to expand on that because the question is specific to Thrive grants. She states that they implement a relationship education, including risk avoidance and emotional intelligence. The curriculum is peer-reviewed and medically accurate in the research of effectiveness, and it has been shown to reduce poverty. So her question is, would a program described like that qualify for a grant under Thrive?
So the first question I would ask is, how do you connect it to housing, to childcare, to transportation, to career development, to financial education? So that's always going to be the first question that I ask a grantee. So if you're going through the application process, what box would you be checking of those 5? And of that, how then are you able to relate your work that you're doing directly to one of those 5 areas? So that's your litmus test. Does it fit in one of those areas?
She states career development.
Okay, then we would have to have that conversation to talk about how that works together and go from there. And then, of course, when we get a bit more to the application, we can talk about some of the metrics that have to be collected based on career development. And again, that helps us to ensure that it's a fit for that funding source. So thank you for that.
Sure. Our president and CEO, Jane, would like to remind the audience that while we have $2 million in assets, they are endowed, which means they are invested to grow and be available to support the community year after year. The amount available to grant is calculated annually and is a % of the asset balance. That way, the principal is preserved so we have resources to make grants year after year.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shauna, for reading that on behalf of Jane. Any other questions in the Q&A or comments at this point in time? All
Not right now.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So for Thrive grants over $6,000, we have our 2 cycles we'll be doing. The first cycle beginning February 28th, ending March 21st, with grants being announced on June 2nd. So if you are applying for a larger Thrive grant, please ensure that your program start date is June 1st or later. Likewise, if you're going to apply under cycle 2, which is July 1st through August 21st, please make sure your program start date is November 1st or later. All this information for all of our grants has already been updated on our website. So this information that you are seeing, it is out there for you to view. So now we get into what that application looks like. While we're not going to go through the entire application, there are just some key sections that we found to be very relevant, and we want to hit on those. So I'm just using the Thrive grants here as an example. So if you were applying for a large Thrive grant of over $6,000, excuse me, the first thing you're going to see is that program project start date. So the dates I just gave you, we wanted to highlight those on the application. So as soon as you go in and you start that process, you see the program start date must begin on or after the dates below. So that's a quick reminder for you. So if you were doing a grant for Embracing the Agent, for example, the dates would be out there. If you're doing it for MHF and so on. I didn't do it for each of those funding sources, but just wanted to provide you with an example as to what you can expect to see when you do get in there to that application. Then we also have the program or project end date. We do understand that some projects or programs are, 6 months. You'll typically have your post-grant report due 30 days following the end of your program or project date. So we have those focus areas that I just mentioned. So when you look at, for instance, career development, if that's the area you're selecting to say, hey, I want to do something in career development. Well, some of the metrics that we're looking to collect, well, the number of individuals applying for this program that you have, the number of scholarships that you're looking to award, the number of participants accepted into your program. These will be things that you'll be reporting out at either during your interim, if you do have some information available, but definitely for your post-grant report. The number of participants that completed the program, and then there's some tracking that's involved. So the number of participants employed 1 year after the program ends. So that career development, the focus is how do we get folks the education they need so that they can get that job to get them on the road of economic mobility. So we're asking those grantees to ensure that there's some kind of tracking mechanism in place so that you can stay connected with the folks and be able to report back to us their status in a year. Were they able to be employed? Were they able to maintain that? And anything like that, that's the kind of information we're looking for. Let's say you're doing childcare, of course, you're trying to provide scholarships. A lot of times we have providers that have kids that want to go there, but they just can't afford it. So they'll provide some kind of scholarship to help with tuition, so we're trying to collect information like the number of scholarship applicants, the number of scholarships awarded, et cetera. For transportation, if you're getting those bus passes so folks get back and forth to work and things like that, how many passes did you purchase, distributed, even looking at the number of rides and things of that nature. And then we'll also ask you to at least do one set of intended indicators, method of measurements, and degree of change. You don't, even though there's 4 or 5 listed in the application, you will only need to do one of those because you're also going to be tracking those other metrics that I highlighted on the previous screen. Then you want to get into your total program budget. So remember, this is saying for the program. This is not the organization budget. So a lot of times we get the whole entire organizational budget. We want the budget for that program or project. And then we want you to be able to outline or give us the amount that's committed from other sources. So you want to make sure that you're diversifying your funds as much as possible. And you upload your budget, and then we'll go from there, making sure your budgets are clean and clear. So you also want to remember that sometimes the language that you use in your budget might not be common language. So it's great to have a key, so if you have a line item on there, that somebody might not understand what that is, it's okay to provide a brief explanation. This, expense is for this. When we say this income, that means that. Anything you can do that provides more information to the readers, it makes it a whole lot easier. There's sometimes abbreviations on budgets. We don't know what it means. So then what happens is we have to go back to you as the grantee, ask more follow-up questions, which delays your application. So to move beyond all of that, the best thing you can do, be as clear as possible when you do your budget. These are our expenses. This is the income. These are our other funding sources, etc. But those things are critical to having a solid budget. Budgets are probably the thing that most of our committees, our readers get caught up on, because they're just not clear. Also, we are collecting information on diversity, and we're collecting it on board members for your organizations, as well as staff breakdown, and you'll see the staff breakdown later. We just want to reiterate that this information that we're collecting is only visible to YCCF staff. Grant readers, committee members, none of them ever see this breakdown. This information is just for YCCF. And you say, why do you want that kind of information? Thank you for asking, because we like to understand where dollars are going. It provides with the opportunity to connect with the organizations to see if there's any assistance we can provide, from that diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint. It's very important, as community leaders, to understand that as we serve a diverse community, that they're represented by diverse individuals. This will not stop an organization from being funded. So I want to be clear about that. I know sometimes, we were asked for this information, folks are like, well, why is that? It's important to know where dollars are going. Are dollars going to organizations that are, that are diverse, that are impacting the communities, that are helping those low income individuals and things of that nature. So we do collect it, but it does not hurt an organization, and it's not shared outside of YCCF staff. So I want to make sure we reiterate that. So let's get into the next funding source, our Racial Equity Fund, which offers grants up to $15,000, which is an increase from last year. They were only doing $10,000. Larger requests may be considered on a case-by-case basis for projects that seek to address the equity gaps for communities of color in the areas of education and job readiness, criminal justice system, community leadership and development, income and wealth creation, racial and cultural education, and health and wellness. And we are in a process of making sure we could provide you all with some definitions. So when we say criminal justice system, what does that mean? So be on the lookout. We're going to update that on our website here shortly, so that if you are looking to get dollars through Racial Equity Fund, you're clear and understanding as to what those dollars can be used for. As with our other applications, the cycles are listed out there. So for racial equity, March 1st, it opens, March 22nd, it closes. Program start date must be June 1st or later. That second cycle opens August 1st, closing on the 22nd of August. Program start date must be November 1st or later. And again, you can find the same information on our website. We have our Memorial Health Fund, which improves the the complete physical, mental, and social well-being of the residents of York, PA. Memorial Health Fund is a supporting organization of York County's Community Foundation. MHF's board administers all grant-making decisions. Its work is supported by YCCF, and I do serve as the point of contact for Memorial Health Fund. So like with Thrive Grants, if you are looking to apply for a grant through MHF, we have to have that conversation because that application too is a secured application and you will need a code in order to access it. So please plan to connect with myself to talk more about MHF and if that grant idea you have could potentially fit within their funding model. So the grants for MHF, their goal is to see the improvement overall of community health, provide resources for the restoration and maintenance of health, to bring high quality healthcare services to York County, to promote general health and wellness of persons in the greater York area, promote health education, engage in fundraising and related activities or programs, engage in other activities directly or indirectly, including making grants to other nonprofit organizations to enable them to carry out these kinds of activities. So part of the reason why with the Thrive grants, we didn't have health as one of our priorities, because health is a priority. But being that we have this partnership with MHF, we didn't want to be redundant. So any health related request that comes in, we have those requests go directly to MHF since that is their singular focus. By doing that, that frees up more dollars within the foundation to do the other areas. So MHF, their cycle will be opening February 15th. It will be closing on March 8th. We have that resubmission period. So what we do is we scrub the applications, we get questions, we send them back to the grantees. Again, we want to make sure you're sending a nice, clean application through that has minimal questions. So Jason and I will take the time to go through that process. You get those applications back March 15th, and then, May 1st, we're looking at having the awards announced. And for MHF, that program start date is May 1st. So when you do log into the website, you select MHF, you put in the code, you're going to see under those program start date, you're going to see where it says, it must be May 1st or December 1st. All right, so I want to make sure that everyone understands that. And that's cycle 2, as I mentioned, with the program start date of December 1st, that application opens September 4th, closes on the 25th, and then that resubmission date is October 4th. And then we talk about the world of embracing aging, something that is a pleasure, and not everyone gets the opportunity to embrace aging. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy at this point, and we'll go ahead and talk about embracing aging.
Thank you, Adrian. I want to begin by saying a huge thank you to all of you for the valuable programming and services that you provide in our community. We are so grateful that you're investing some time this morning to learn about YCCF's grant opportunities and how we might be able to help you reach your mission and serve your members or your clients. This is a special year for Embracing Aging. As you can see underneath the logo, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we're thrilled to be hitting this milestone. Now, Embracing Aging is for grants that serve people age 50 and older, but all of you who serve other age groups, I want you to pay special attention, because what's most important is that multi-generational, intergenerational grant ideas are something that we really like to see, because we know that those relationships are ways that we can improve attitudes on aging. So if you do have a program idea or serving, whether it's younger children, teenagers, even younger adults, if you have an idea for coming together and doing something with an older population, please reach out. We'd love to entertain a grant request from you. So with that, I want to jump into sharing with you what Embracing Aging is offering this year. Is the webinar slides up? I'll go ahead. We too are participating in the cycles that are read by community grant readers. We too are doing both cycles. It's the same time frames as the dates that Adrian went over with you for the Thrive Community Grants. We are awarding $40,000 in 2023 with $20,000 per grant cycle. Again, the applications are read and scored and decided by the community grant readers. So similar situation, simpler application, community grant readers, same time frames for request up to $6,000. The other thing that we are doing this year is we are offering one cycle of larger grants for those over 6,000. And this is for initiatives that are helping older adults in the areas of housing, transportation, healthy living, employment, and increasing joy and meaning. So for the community grants, it's just for any program or service that's serving people age 50 and older. But for larger grants, we really would like to entertain grant requests that focus on housing, transportation, healthy living, employment, and increasing joy and meaning. Now, we have one grant round, and I'm about ready to talk about the dates for that. Hopefully the slides will come up so that you can see it. But I want to share with you that our larger grants are read and scored and decided by our Embracing Aging Distribution Committee. So for the grants over 6,000, we are going to, once again, have an application very similar to the application that Adrian showed you for grants, but we want to start with something called a letter of intent. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask applicants and organizations to complete a few questions about the program that they want to seek funding on, its impact, what it's going to do. Our committee will review the letters of intent, and based on the information shared, we'll determine if they invite the organization to apply. So this year, the letters of intent are due on July 26th. So starting from the beginning of now until July 26th, you have the opportunity to complete your letter of intent. And I'll go over exactly what that entails in a minute or two. The committee will meet on August 9th and determine if they would like you to apply. If they invite you to apply, then you have until September 8th to submit your application. And then we'll get questions out to you based on your applications. And that will be on October 11th. You have until October 25th to resubmit your applications. And then the decisions will be announced as early as November 10th or as late as December 14th. So it's July 26th to November 10th, December 14th at the latest. And that might maybe sound like a larger process, but what we want to make certain is that we're not having organizations go through completing every aspect of their application if it's not something that our committee thinks aligns with our areas and is willing to entertain funding on. So we'd like to test this process in 2023. Now, just like Adrian had discussed, so here we are. Thank you for the slides coming back up. So we talked about the community grants, and you can see those cycle dates align with the other community cycle dates. And if we could advance to the next slide, please. And those are, now we're talking about the larger grants. And as I said, it's for serving people age 50 and older related to housing, transportation, healthy living, employment, increasing joy and meaning. And if we can go to the next slide, here's those dates that I was just going over. So again, the letter of intent's due on July 26th, and decisions will be announced no later than December 14th. And what I was going to say is I really encourage you to reach out and brainstorm an idea with me before that July 26th, submitting that letter of intent. I'm here to help in any way, just bounce ideas off of, communicate with you. So please reach out and we'll schedule a time to meet. On the next slide, you're going to see this is what is the type of information we would like to collect in the letter of intent. And when you look at this, you're going to say, well, wow, that looks a lot like the application information that Adrian went over. And it is, because what we want to do is, if you are invited to apply, all this information then is already in the system, and you can just add to it, tweak it, revise it as you see fit, instead of needing to retype it. So it is a lot of the similar information on the letter of intent that's on the application, but it's there for a reason, and it's to help you in the long run not have to spend as much time retyping things in. Now, when you go on to apply at the beginning of the application, you're going to see these things, but then it's going to stop. It's not going to allow you to move any further. So you'll know that you've completed the end of your letter of intent. And when you go to apply on the screen, when you go into the Foundant system, you're going to want to select Embracing Aging Large Grants 2023, and that's going to take you through it. Depending on when you go in to apply, you might see other things listed, other applications, whether it's a Thrive application, a racial equity application, whatever might be open grant cycles at the time. So you want to make certain that you select Embracing Aging Large Grants 2023 if it is indeed for a request over 6,000. The next thing that I'd like to share as I wrap up my portion is a new resource that can help you serve your members, help you serve your clients, even help you serve your employees. And it's called Trove Street. And if you haven't checked it out yet, please visit our website at trovestreet.com. So as I mentioned, Embracing Aging is in its 10th year. And what we learned repeatedly over the years is that beyond possibly saving for retirement, people don't want to think about aging. They don't want to plan for it. They just kind of push it to the side. And as a result, that people are not thinking about their changes that might happen to them as they age, and thinking about the impact of those changes on where they live, how they get around in the community, on their health, whether it's physical health, emotional health, mental health. What's the way they spend their day? They don't think about that. What brings them joy and meaning, and how they stay engaged and continue to have purpose. And of course, like I said, sometimes people are able to save for retirement, but they're maybe not thinking beyond that in terms of money matters. So Trove Street really is a resource that helps people. It's an online platform, but it's also a resource navigator service. And it's to help people learn about the top things to consider in these areas so that they can begin planning now before times of heightened stress and crisis, so that they can be putting plans in place to ensure that they can have the best quality of life as they grow older. We offer a free lunch and learn on this, and we also offer free overview presentations. And I would love to have you reach out to me and have the opportunity to share this new resource with you, regardless of what age clients you serve. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Kathy, I do have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
The first one is from Z Baker. Z would like to know, is there a dollar range for the Embracing Aging Large Grants?
No, we do not have a dollar amount allocated. We, at this point in time, want to entertain what comes our way, and the committee will review each in terms of what dollars we have available to spend.
I have another question from Dawn Squire. She would like to know, for the Embracing Aging Grant, will funds be available to go towards operating expenses versus tangible items required for the project? She's thinking about a process needed to serve versus things.
A process needed to what?
To serve versus things. So it sounds like she's concerned about, would she be able to use grant funds for operating expenses versus tangible items?
Yeah, we do not, our eligibility is that we do not cover operation shortfalls. That being said, if it is a new program, something new that needs to be implemented, and there's some operational expenses associated with doing that, that would be something that we would entertain. And Dawn, I'm happy to speak with you directly to better understand what you're thinking and help you work through that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mhm.
All right, well, I am back. Had a little technical glitch there, but thank you for Jason for just picking things up and keeping things going. And next, we are going to get into the contract review portion of our presentation. We're using an example here that for a grant we did with the program. So we're going to go ahead and turn things over to Layla, and she will go ahead and talk about the grant agreement contract.
Good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, you're not able to see my smiling face, but I'll let you know I'm engaged. Just happy to have so many on to hear about our grant programs this year. So just to get started and to do a brief review of our contracts. Yes, thank you. The contract will always reference your grant number. That's at the top in the upper right-hand corner. That will always be referenced. So it does help us if you do call in or have questions after the grant is being awarded. If you reference that, then we're able to use that to pull up all the necessary information that we need to go over the items with you. And just to go into a little bit about that top portion as well, it will always include the name of your program, the date the grant was authorized, which Adrian had touched on briefly earlier this morning, as well as the description of your project, the grant amount, the foundation fund that's supporting your grant, and also the project end and start date. And just to inform you, this information is pulled directly from your application. So that's why it's important to complete your application to put in the correct project start and end date. That just facilitates the process and makes everything flow nicely. Just to highlight a few things on this slide, the grant payments, this year, grant checks will be processed and cut after we receive your contract signed. So once we receive that return contract and it's signed, then that's when the grant checks will be prepared to go out the door. We also ask that if there are any changes to the program different from what you explained in your application, to please call us. In fact, if you would contact Jason Andrews, in some instances it may be Adrian, but just let us know. Typically, it is not a problem. As long as you're able to explain to us, maybe if there was a delay, if there was a new concept that you're thinking may be better than what you had thought of in your application, just please let us know. We'll go over that with you. We will provide you with a change order request form to complete that is delivered in the system. You'll get an email directly from the system. Once you complete that and we can make the updates to your program, then you'll be off and running again. So as long as we are notified of the changes, then we can work with you and continue to make that grant work. Oh, I'm sorry, if you could go back to that slide. I just wanted to highlight that grant funds should be returned if for some reason the project is not completed. If you have an excess of monies after you have completed the full project and there's a balance of the funds remaining, please return those as well. And if you do lose your 501c3 status, talk to us as well. It may be necessary to return the funds. But in situations like that, if we could receive, actually myself could receive a phone call or a heads up notifying us that funds will be returned, again, that will keep this process running smoothly. As mentioned with Adrian, the authorization date is very important. Grant funds may not be used prior to that grant authorization date. So we use this bit to create the dates that we provided to you as to when a program should start if you're applying in a specific cycle. So please be mindful of that. And again, we would also make you aware that as far as an expenditure of the funds and financial records, please keep an accounting for that as well. This part of the contract, it's pretty much just informing the grantee that if there would happen to be any property damage or personal damage while executing the project or program, that the foundation, its board, its employees, committee members shall assume no liability. As well as in this portion, by signing this contract, you're agreeing to continually carry adequate insurance to cover loss if that were to occur. And then finally, regarding publicity, we love it when you announce your grant, when you make that public. But we do ask that prior to any printed materials being made or any posts on social media, that you do contact Sarah Thomas. And I'm looking at this contract and she has a new title. So, but in any event, the email is correct. If you please contact her, she can review your announcement, and if there's any edits or pointers or things that she would like to include, she will be able to let you know. And then again, as far as reporting at the completion of your project, depending on the longevity of your program will depend if there is perhaps an interim report due, or it could just be as simple as having a post-grant report due. But typically that is based on the timeline. It is not uncommon for a year-long program for us to require an interim report, perhaps at the 6-month mark, and then a post-grant report at the completion. And then last but not least is just the signing of the contract. And again, the person signing this contract, I believe you do enter that information on your application. So that is taken directly from the application. So just take heed to that portion. So again, it keeps the process rolling. From the get-go, we have that information of who's signing the contract. Are there any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, real quick, prior to questions, contract and grant check takeaways, just last minute reminders. Again, please pay attention to your program start dates. Make sure that they align with the grant cycle that you're applying for. New this year, grant contracts. The new part is that our process in the past has been we process the checks and at the same time, we're asking for contracts to be signed. That is how it has gone in the past. And going forward, we will not be processing checks until we receive the returned grant check. Until we receive the returned grant contract. And also new this year, we are transitioning to using DocuSign for contract signings. We are always looking for ways to improve the process, make things smoother for you, the grantee, for us in-house. So we are in the beginning stages of that, and more information is to follow. So now at this time, are there any questions?
I don't have any coming through Q&A right now.
And again, any questions that you would happen to have about your contract, your grant checks, you can always email myself and I'll be more than happy to help you with that.
All right, thank you so much for that. So now we can go ahead and get into some other questions and some key takeaways. Again, if you have questions regarding anything related to grants under $6,000, as well as field of interest, or any technical issues in accessing the system, lockouts, any of that, user IDs, passwords, you can chat with Jason. He could provide that information for you. Any information you need regarding Embracing Aging or Trove Street, Kathy is your contact person. Any questions regarding, again, contracts, payments regarding grants, scholarship opportunities, those things will all go to Layla. Anything regarding grants over 6,000, Memorial Health Fund, Racial Equity Fund, those type of questions will come to me. And anything else, or you just don't know who to contact, reach out to Shauna and she can help you navigate and figure out who you need to connect with, talk to, and she can help steer you from there.
Jason's actually going to pull up that contact slide because
Okay.
the questions that we do have are specific to email addresses.
Perfect.
So Jason's going to pull that slide up. So if anyone has any question in regard to who to contact, that slide will be available for a little bit so that you can take note of that, our email addresses, as well as it is on the yccf.org website. And Adrian, I have a question that I believe would be specific towards you.
Okay.
Jen Chambers is asking, who would she contact with specific questions concerning startup costs for a youth center?
So, so we can talk about your idea of your youth center, as far as if that fits within any of the funding opportunities. But actually understanding those startup costs or what those would be, that would be a bit outside of our purview. There might be some research and things that we can point you in the direction to go to look at what some of those startup costs may be. But we more so focus on, the program side of a project. So what is the project? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? And then how does that project relate to either our Thrive grants, field of interest, Embracing Aging, Racial Equity, Memorial Health? How does it fit within one of those funding sources? So that would more so be our approach in our area of expertise.
Pastor Darnell from United Church of God in Christ would like to know, will a hard copy of the PowerPoint presentation be available on our website?
This will be available tomorrow on the website. Yes, so we can make sure that the recorded version is on there, as well as the ability to just download and print the presentation to discuss with your staff, have it on your desk. Is something to keep handy.
Sarah Kern has a question, but I'm going to read it. But I think, Sarah, the best course of action would be to email Adrian. Sarah's question is, do you have recommendations on resources for needs assessment data in York County? I just think that maybe that's an emailed question.
Yeah, you definitely can email me and we can talk more about that. One time we had a lot of assessment data, with York counts. So there was tons of information out there. But we can talk about some other potential resources that you can utilize. I know the Planning Commission has a lot of data, a lot of numbers and things like that. Just throwing that out there as a great resource and place to go to get all kinds of need assessment data, things of that nature. Any other questions that are coming through?
I don't have any right now, but I'm trying to see if anyone, is currently typing.
Yep, that's fine. You can keep on typing. Again, just a quick reminder. So the first grant cycle will be opening February 1st. That'll be for the community grants. Look at those Thrive grants under 6,000. as well as embracing aging, those grants for 6,000 and under. So that will be opening up on February 1st. So please make note. This is an excellent way, especially for some of the grassroots organizations. Just start now. Again, it's not the highest bar, that you have to reach, because it's not a ton of money. So this is a great way to get your feet wet and writing for some grants, getting some feedback. So definitely would encourage some, folks that if you have those smaller needs, to really consider, the community grants that'll be starting February 1st.
So I have a question from Bruce Mann. He would like to know food insecurity areas, ? Also Anderson Fund, is it still available?
So I'll have to check into the Anderson Fund. Right now, from talking with the community, we did identify our 5 areas that we're focusing in. There are others that focus on food insecurity. So it's not that it's not a priority within the community, but with others already having the focus, what we try to do is fill in some of those other areas where we begin to see gaps and things of that nature. So, we have to start somewhere. We would love to include so many other areas, but what happens is our funding is so limited, so we looked at these 5 initial pillars. So not to say that, in time, if we begin to see that there is a more or greater needs when it comes to food insecurity, and we need to revisit that, we will. But when I did my community conversations and just did my walk around with different organizations to understand what some of those needs were, these were like the 5 needs that you kept hearing that really surfaced and came to the top. So that's why we started off of these 5 initially. Not to say these will be our forever and only 5, but at least for these first few years, the areas of focus have been identified.
I have another question from Ms. Ruth Leonard from Jack and Jill Nursery School here in York County. For the Thrive Grant over $6,000, in regards to childcare, would a playground update be something the grant would cover?
That's something we would have to talk about. Typically we try to focus more on programming, so our focus with childcare has really been teacher certification, getting the teachers trained, helping them, increase capacity, helping them provide scholarships, to low-income in the low-income family, so they can get a quality childcare experience. So we have not done anything in that realm. That would definitely have to be something that we'd have to vet with the committee. But it has not, to date, it has not been an area that they wanted to really focus on. It really has been the teacher training, certification, and scholarship aspect of childcare.
Our president and CEO, Jane, jumped in here to give us a little clarification regarding the Anderson Fund. She said it is the agriculture fund and is being used to support farmers. So Jason would be the point of contact regarding that.
Additional questions?
I did have one that came in via email, just regarding those entities that not yet have a 501c3 and would like to collaborate with an organization with a 501c3. If you can just elaborate on that a little bit.
We're essentially talking about like having a fiscal sponsor.
Correct.
So you have an organization that is a 501c3. So what essentially has to happen is, that entity that's not that 501c3 would need to connect with that fiscal sponsor and have those conversations, ensure they're willing to do it. There are some, reporting requirements and things like that. Layla and I, we were just having that conversation. Layla, if you want to jump in a bit, because I know there's some differences when the contract comes in, when that fiscal sponsorship happens.
Yes, so if you do obtain a fiscal sponsor, the fiscal sponsor will be the grantee, and they will be the one creating the application within Founded. So checks will be dispersed to your fiscal sponsor. We actually prepare a two-part contract. The first part is an agreement between YCCF and your fiscal sponsor. And then the second part of the contract is between the grantee, that's not the 501c, and their fiscal sponsor. We prepare that on your behalf. So the one thing to remember is once you work with that fiscal sponsor, determine who it is, just make sure that they are the ones creating the application.
Thank you for that information, Layla. Really appreciate it.
Had another question come through. Okay, this one is just more of a comment, not a question.
Okay.
If I missed your hand raised and you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A box.
And again, if you if something else comes up later on, please feel free just to reach out to us, and we can answer those questions via email. More than willing to do that. I know some questions we can just address once we meet. Simply, so if that's the easier way to do it, that's fine as well.
Adrian, if you have just a brief minute to touch on, I have received a few questions during the presentation in regards to individuals who would like to start up a not-for-profit, who are in the midst of applying for a 501(c) and just wanted to know if there were funding opportunities for them once they obtain it.
Again, one requirement we do have, and that was in the beginning of the presentation, is you have to have been a 501(c)(3) for at least a year. So once you get your official notification from the IRS that you have been approved as a 501(c)(3), you wouldn't be able to apply for funding until it's been a year beyond that date.
Thank you. Stewartstown Senior Center would like to thank everyone, Kathy, you as well, for this informative presentation.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much. And again, it's about 10:15. We did a lot of hour and a half, so we're definitely within the time frame. If there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. All of our contact information is up there. On behalf of the grant team, as well as on behalf of our CEO and President, Jane Conover, we just want to thank you all for the work that you do within the community. We truly are not able to do what we do without you. You will always hear me refer to you all as our partners, not merely us just being a funder. And that's the kind of relationship we desire to have with all of you. We want you to see us as a partner with the same interests that you have, and our interests are jointly aligned in trying to make York a better place, trying to ensure that needs are met, that those individuals who are in need, they know they can depend on us, and us being our partnership to come through and make things happen. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you all very much. And unless there's another question, Shauna, that will conclude our 2023 grant information session. I look forward to seeing you, chatting with you all, and working with you throughout 2023 to impact and change lives. So again, thank you all very much.